something just closed behind you. And that's why it feels weird today. Not bad, not wrong, just weird. Like you walked into a room and the air is different. Like the light hits your face at a new angle. Like your body is here, but your soul is still turning around, looking at the door that just shut. And you're trying to act normal. You're trying to talk like normal, smile like normal, work like normal. But inside you feel that quiet shift. I know. You're asking yourself, why do I feel off when nothing even happened? Or maybe something did happen, but you can't explain it without sounding dramatic, so you just swallow it. But what if you're not off at all? What if you're in between? Because that's a space nobody prepares you for. Not the heartbreak, not the failure, not even the goodbye. The space after. The space where the old version of you can't come with you anymore, but the new version of you hasn't fully arrived. Can you feel it? That strange quiet, that sudden sensitivity, that heaviness that doesn't have a name. And it makes you wonder, what if I'm losing something? What if I'm messing up? What if I'm falling behind? But listen, something just closed behind you, and your nervous system is trying to memorize the sound of the lock. Because you didn't just leave a place, you didn't just leave a situation, you didn't just leave a person, you left a pattern. And patterns don't let go politely. They pull at you. They whisper to you. They send little memories like texts you didn't ask for. You'll be walking, and suddenly you remember an old version of you that used to survive by shrinking. You'll be drinking water, and suddenly you miss the chaos you swore you hated. You'll be doing fine, and suddenly you feel guilty for doing fine. Why? Because that door didn't just close on your past, it closed on your identity. And that's why it feels weird today. Now, let me open an honest loop with you. There's a specific reason it feels physically weird too, even if nothing changed on the outside. And I'm going to tell you what it is in a minute. But first, I need you to hear this without flinching. That discomfort you're feeling, it's not punishment. It's preparation. Say it again, because your mind will try to argue. It's not punishment. It's preparation. And you've been trained to think that discomfort means danger. But what if discomfort can also mean departure? What if the weird feeling is just your spirit adjusting to a reality that doesn't require you to perform anymore? Because the old life asked you to be two people at once. One person on the outside, holding it together, and another person on the inside, holding it in. And now, you're not doing that as smoothly. Now, the mask feels heavy. Now, you can't pretend your way through it without feeling it. And that's not you falling apart. That's you coming back, I know. Part of you still waiting for the other shoe to drop. Part of you is still scanning the room for the same pain. Part of you is still bracing like you're about to get picked apart. Because you lived in a season where your peace was always temporary. So when the door closes behind you, you don't immediately relax, you immediately question it. Why is it quiet? What's about to happen? Who's gonna leave? What am I missing? And you call that intuition. But what if it's not intuition? What if it's just memory? Your body remembers what your mind has tried to outgrow. And that's why today feels weird. Because your future is arriving, and your past is still trying to hand you your old script. So, let me ask you something. What if the thing you're calling confusion is actually a reorientation? What if the thing you're calling emptiness is actually space being clear? What if the thing you're calling loneliness is actually silence returning because the noise finally left? Can you feel the difference? Noise leaving doesn't always sound like freedom. Sometimes it sounds like absence. Sometimes it sounds like, wait, who am I without that struggle? And that question, that question is sacred, because it means you're no longer being defined by what you endured. And here comes the first reveal. Remember that open loop I promised? That physical weirdness? Here it is. Your body has been living in an emotional climate for so long that it got used to it, even if it hurt you, even if it drained you, even if it made you small. It became familiar. So when the climate changes, when the pressure drops, your body doesn't immediately celebrate. It recalibrates. It's like stepping out of a loud room and realizing your ears are ringing. The ringing isn't the room anymore. The ringing is your system adjusting to the quiet. That's why it feels weird today. The weirdness is not proof you made the wrong move. It's proof you moved. And that's the part you don't give yourself credit for. You moved. Not perfectly. Not with fireworks. Not with a big announcement. But you moved. And now there's a closed door behind you that your old self keeps reaching for. Out of habit. Not because it's meant for you. Habit is powerful. Habit is sneaky. Habit is spiritual muscle memory, and it will try to convince you that the closed door is a tragedy. But what if it's protection? What if it's mercy you didn't have to beg for? Because some doors don't close when you're ready. They close when your soul is done negotiating. They close when the version of you that kept making it work finally runs out of excuses. They close when the universe realizes you'll keep returning to what hurts you. Just because you know the way, so it shuts it. And you stand there like, why does this feel like grief if it's good for me? Why do I miss what I prayed to escape? Why do I feel guilty for choosing myself? Because you didn't just lose something. You lost a role you were playing. And roles become identities. And identities become comfort. Even when they're cages. So yes, it can feel like grief. But grief isn't always about death. Sometimes grief is about a life you almost accepted. Sometimes grief is about a smaller version of you that tried so hard and still didn't get what it deserved. And you're not weak for feeling it. You're human. Now listen closely, because I'm going to open the second loop right now. There is a sign, one quiet sign, that lets you know this closing is not a setback. It's alignment. And I'll tell you what it is soon. But before I do, I need you to stop interpreting the weirdness as a warning, because you're not in danger. You're in transition. And transition always feels like this. It feels like nothing and everything at the same time. It feels like you're floating. It feels like you're waiting for the ground to appear. And you hate that because you like clarity, you like plans, you like knowing where you stand. But the most powerful shifts in your life don't begin with clarity. They begin with a trembling. They begin with a pause you can't explain. They begin with a day like today, where you wake up and think, something is different, and you can't prove it, but you can feel it. And you keep trying to reason your way out of a feeling. You keep trying to intellectualize a spiritual season. You keep saying, if it was right, it wouldn't feel like this. But what if that's backwards? What if it feels like this because it's right? Because the old path never required you to grow. It just required you to cope. But this new path? Oh, this new path requires you to become. And becoming is messy. Becoming is quiet before it's loud. Becoming is awkward before it's elegant. Becoming is uncertain before it's undeniable. So don't rush to label your discomfort as failure. Discomfort is not always a red flag. Sometimes it's a green light that doesn't look like one yet. Now, the second reveal, the sign, the quiet sign, here it is. When something closes behind you and it's truly alignment, you start noticing you can breathe without performing. Not all the time, not perfectly, but in little moments, you catch yourself exhaling. You catch your shoulders dropping. You catch yourself not checking your phone as much. You catch yourself not rehearsing conversations in your head. You catch yourself not shrinking the truth. And it surprises you, because you didn't realize how much energy it took to be who you were being. That's the sign. Not constant happiness, not instant confidence, but a subtle return of your breath. A quiet decrease in the inner noise. A little less pretending. That's alignment. And that's why it feels weird today. Because you're not used to breathing like this. You're not used to a reality where you don't have to earn your peace with suffering. And your mind will try to drag you back to what you can predict. Even if it's painful. Even if it's limiting. Even if it's small. Because predictable pain feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. So you might be tempted to reopen the door, to send the message, to revisit the situation, to just check, to just see, to just make sure. I know, but hear me. That door closed for a reason. And no, this isn't about you being perfect. This isn't about you never looking back. This is about you recognizing the moment you're in, because this moment is the threshold. And thresholds feel weird, thresholds feel quiet, thresholds feel empty. But emptiness isn't the end. Emptiness is the space where the next thing can finally fit. And you're standing in front of a new life that cannot enter the old room. So the room had to be clear. The door had to close. The chapter had to end. And you're allowed to feel the weirdness without worshiping it. You're allowed to feel it and still choose forward. You're allowed to miss it and still not return. You're allowed to grieve and still grow. Because the closing behind you, it wasn't rejection. It was redirection. It was protection. It was a holy interruption of the cycle. And if today feels strange, good. Because strange means you're no longer numb. Strange means you're no longer sleepwalking. Strange means something in you has woken up and realized, I can't do that anymore. And that realization, that's the beginning of your breakthrough. Not the loud kind, the real kind, the kind that starts quietly. And then one day you look back and realize the door didn't just close behind you. It locked because you were finally meant to stop turning around. So, if this message hit you in the chest, if it felt like it found you, write this in the comments. I'm not being punished. I'm being prepared.